Hi everyone, it's me Guni and you guys are watching on Learning for Life. Well, today we are going to start with another short story of class 10th ICSE, that is the last lesson. So we have already done the elevator, the girl who can, with the photographer and the pedestrian, and this is going to be the last short story for the syllabus. We will be starting with poems and Julius Caesar very soon after this one. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon so you get notified each time I upload a new video. So let's now, without wasting any time, get started with our today's chapter, that is the last lesson. So before starting with the chapter, as I always say, read about the author first. So let's get started with that only. Alphonse Daudet. So that is the name of the author. That is Alphonse Daudet, was a French novelist. So he was French. The last lesson, a short story set against the backdrop of the Franco-Prussian War, deals with the occupation of Alsace-Lorraine in the year 1870s. So the setting of the chapter is basically in 1870s, and the time when there was a war between France and Russia. So Franco-Prussian War, and it was the occupation of Alsace-Lorraine. So that is a place there. So उसके occupation वहाँ पे क्या क्या हो रहा था, about that. The story tells us what happens when there's an attempt to slowly sever the tie between a people and its language by a powerful enemy. So the story tells कि क्या होता है जब someone powerful, someone enemy tries to cut off you from your language. So people and the language has been cut off. यहाँ पे पीपल है, यहाँ पे उनकी अपनी लैंग्वेज है, तो उनको अपनी लैंग्वेज से दूर किया जा रहा है बाय एन एनिमी. तो वहाँ पे क्या कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस होते हैं, आपकी क्या फीलिंग्स होती है, हाउ यू फील, हाउ यू एक्सप्रेस योर सेल्फ, तुम्हें क्या क्या चीज़ें याद आती हैं, उसके बारे में बात की गई है. The last lesson is a great reminder of how we cannot take our language for granted. So it is a great reminder कि हमें अपनी language को for granted नहीं लेना चाहिए. What we do is we are so mad in the love of English or other languages, whatever language we like, that we are forgetting our own roots. हम भूल रहे हैं कि what is our mother tongue and how to speak it. So this is basically, we should not forget that thing basically, right? And how important it is to love and learn one's language in order to protect one individual and collective in identity. So it says कि, and it also tells us that how important, उसकी क्या ज़रूरत है, कितनी ज़रूरी है to लव अपनी लैंग्वेज को, अपनी लैंग्वेज को लव करना, अपनी लैंग्वेज सीखना, क्योंकि वो ही एक चीज़ है दैट ड्यूरिंग द टाइम ऑफ इमरजेंसी तुम्हारी इंडिविजुअल और कलेक्टिव रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी और कलेक्टिव आइडेंटिटी को प्रोटेक्ट करेगी. इफ़ यू टॉक अबाउट आर फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल ऑल्सो, हमने देखा था लाइक द पीपल यूज टू कन्वर्स इन their mother tongues, so that British could not know ki what was happening, so they can conspire even against the British, to they can make plans to get independence, right? So this is what it says, that if you know your own language and there is an enemy, you won't be knowing your language obviously, right? So will help you protect your identity, because through conversing through this, you can create plans and you can get out of situations which are unfavorable, right? The story is also a sharp and poignant reminder on how important it is to not to put off learning. So it's also a reminder कि हमें चीज़ों को कल पे नहीं डालना चाहिए, स्पेशली लर्निंग को. किसी चीज़ को सीखना है तो उसे आज के आज ही सीखना चाहिए. We should not put off things to tomorrow, because sometimes कि that time is gone. Today I have the time to learn, today I have the time to read this chapter, but if I am going to put it off tomorrow, maybe something happens, maybe an emergency comes over, or maybe something happens due to which I just lost the opportunity of reading this chapter, right? So we should not put off things till tomorrow, we should do it as soon as we get time, right? Its beauty lies in the patriotic appeal. So there is going to be a character who loves his nation, who loves the language. So it's a patriotic appeal that one should be so optimistic, so loveful, so loving towards their language, towards their country. The author takes a human look at the teacher's self-appraisal. So there's a teacher basically in the chapter. So he says the author is trying to find a good, humane means a strange look, a strange perspective, or a different perspective. It can be good, different perspective, not strange. So different things can be good as well as bad. So the author is trying to find a different perspective of the teacher, self-appraisal, how he praises himself, how he puts down. Now self-appraisal can be anything. You could be appraising himself, he could be saying that I am the only best teacher here, or he could be denying with that thing. So this is self-appraisal here can mean basically what he thinks of himself and his grief. Now so appraisal, he is saying that I am a good teacher, and then his grief also, that I couldn't do this, I put off this thing, and whatever that we will be learning in the chapter. And the impending separation. Impending is sure, something what you are sure about. So when he gets separated from his students or the language, he gets very sorrowful. So he appraises himself that yeah, I was a good teacher, I taught a lot of students, but also he expresses his grief that I was not able to do this, I was not able to do that, it was my fault or something else. Right, so this is all about the chapter. So theme of this chapter is going to be love your language, do not put off learning till tomorrow, and it has a patriotic appeal. Right, now let's get started with the chapter that is the last lesson, written by Alphonse Daudet. I started for school very late that morning and was in great dread of scolding. So he says that I was very late. I here is the protagonist basically. So you can understand the protagonist, the child, because he's going to school. So he says that I was already getting a lot late. So already late हो रहा था and morning में, and he was dreadful of the scolding. He was scared that his teacher might scold him because he was late. Especially because Monsieur Himmel, because it's friends, so it's not going to be Mr. It is going to be Monsieur. Monsieur means sir. So he says, especially why he was dreadful of the scolding, because Monsieur Himmel had said that he would question us on the participles. Participles are basically verbs. So he says that Monsieur Himmel has told us that he will be asking questions from us on participles, on verbs. So he will be asking questions, and I did not know the first word about them, and I didn't know a single thing about them. It is basically जैसे हम हिंदी में कहते हैं कि तुम्हें तो उसका जैसे पार्टिसिपल्स है तो तुम्हें पार्टिसिपल्स का प भी नहीं आता. So that is basically what he is trying to say, that मेरे को डर लग रहा था. I was already late in the morning. I was scared of the scolding क्योंकि because Monsieur Himmel ने मुझे कहा था that he will be asking questions from us on the participles, और मुझे उस participles का प भी नहीं आता था. I didn't know even a single thing about them. For a moment I thought of running away and spending the day out of doors. So he says कि एक पल के लिए मैंने सोचा that I would just leave school, I will not attend school, I was run away to some garden or something and just spend my day out. So he would bunk the school. It was so warm, so bright. The birds were chirping at the edge of the woods, and in the open field back of the sawmill, the Prussian soldiers were drilling. So he says the atmosphere was too good. It was warm, it was bright, the birds were chirping at the edge of woods, like at the end of the forest the birds were chirping, and there were also the Prussian soldiers marching, drilling, practicing, right? It was all much more tempting than the rule for participles. So he said that it was all tempting, it was all making me that say stay, just don't go to school. Then participles are boring, he said. But I had the strength to resist and hurried off to school. But see, yes, he said that my mind was tempting me. This all thing was tempting me. My mind was getting distracted. But I tried and I was able to resist. He resisted and he went to school. When I passed the town hall, there was a crowd in front of the bulletin board. Now, bulletin board is the board, simply you have even seen in your schools, जहाँ पे they put up notices and everything. So he says there was a crowd in front of the bulletin board. For the last 2 years, all our bad bad news had come from there. So he says, पिछले 2 सालों से जितनी भी बुरी खबरें आई थी सारी उस बुलेटिन बोर्ड से ही आई थी. There was not even a single good news that we heard from that bulletin board. Lost battles, the draft, the orders of commanding officers, all of these were bad news. So, and I thought of myself too without stopping, what can be the matter now? So he said कि मैं चल रहा था बट मेरे को चलते चलते दिमाग में बिना रुके मैंने एक बात सोची कि अब क्या हो गया. Why is everyone standing near the crowd? The crowd is near the bulletin board because every time there was a crowd near the bulletin board, there was a news from the bulletin board. It was bad, right? Then I hurried by as fast as I could go. So he said, okay, I don't care what is happening, but I have to reach the school. I have to reach the school on time, otherwise I'll get scolded. So he just passed by as fast as he could. The blacksmith watcher. So there was a blacksmith watcher who was there with his apprentice. Apprentice means helper, with his servant, reading the bulletin called after me. So he was standing there and he was reading the bulletin. एक blacksmith था watcher, अपने servant के साथ वहाँ पे खड़ा होके bulletin board पे read कर रहा था. तो उसने उसको जाते हुए देखा and he called himself. उसने उसको बुलाया and said, "Don't go so fast, bub. You will get to school in plenty of time." तो उसने कहा इतनी जल्दी जल्दी मत जा. You have a lot of time. You have plenty of time and you will reach school in time. I thought he was mocking at me. He was making fun of me. So he says he was mocking at me. मेरे को लगा वो मेरा मजाक उड़ा रहा है. And reached Monsieur Hamel little garden out of bread because he was running. So he reached the garden of Monsieur Hamel where he basically teaches. तो पुराने ज़माने में he used to teach in his own home. उसके गार्डन में ही गार्डन के स्कूल के बाहर या गार्डन घर के बाहर गार्डन था. सो ही यूज्ड टू टीच देयर. तो वहाँ पे उसके वो गार्डन में पहुंचा आउट ऑफ ब्रेथ, ग्रास्पिंग फॉर ब्रेथ कि मुझे सांस नहीं आ रही है. Usually when the school began there was a great bustle. So this is what usually would happen. There was a great bustle. बहुत ज़्यादा noise थी, बहुत ज़्यादा भीड़ भाड़, कोई इधर से आ रहा कोई उधर से आ रहा है. Which could be heard out in the street. जो तुम streets में भी सुन सकते थे. The opening and closing of desk. Desk को खोलना बंद करने की आवाज़ जहाँ जब बच्चे बैठेंगे. Lessons repeated in unison. So children repeating their lessons very loud with our hands over our ears to understand better. So छोटे होते पे we all do, we keep our hands on here and we read as loud as we can ताकि हमें जल्दी याद हो and we can remember for a long time, right? For the teacher's great ruler rapping on the table. So there was a teacher's ruler. So वो the teacher would rap the ruler on the table like this. And but now it was also still. But today it was all still. कोई आवाज़ नहीं आई थी, कोई बहुत ज़्यादा शांति थी. I had counted on the commotion to get to my desk without being seen. मैंने तो सोचा था कि इतनी नॉइज होगी, इतना सब कुछ होगा, मैं पीछे से चुपके से जाके अपने डेस्क पे बैठ जाऊंगा और मुझे कोई देखेगा नहीं. But of course that day everything had to be quiet as Sunday morning. पर उस दिन क्या था? Everything was quiet as Sunday morning क्योंकि मैं लेट था और मैं लेट था, सब चुप था तो obviously मुझे डांट पड़ने वाली थी. Through the window I saw my classmates already in their places. विंडो से देखा सारे बच्चे अपनी अपनी जगह पे बैठे हैं. And Monsieur Himmel walking up and down with his terrible iron ruler under his arm. So Monsieur Himmel was also walking up and down. Up and down means just to and fro with his iron scale. Basically I don't have an iron ruler over here, but there's an iron ruler under his arm like this. He was walking. So teachers basically sometimes walk like that in anger, right? So I had to open the door and go in before everybody. So सबके सामने मुझे दरवाजा खोल के अंदर जाना पड़ना था because there was no commotion, there was no noise, so everybody could see me easily, right? You can imagine how blushed and how frightened I was. How blushed is basically shy. How shy, how scared, my cheeks got red, right? So I was frightened. But nothing happened. Monsieur Himmel saw me and said very kindly. मतलब पर कुछ हुआ नहीं. उसने मेरे को देखा. Generally he was a very strict teacher. That's why the boy was already scared of him before. But he said today he didn't do anything. He just saw me and said very काइंडली, बहुत प्यार से उन्होंने बोला, गो टू योर प्लेस क्विकली लिटिल फ्रांस, वी वर बिगिनिंग विदाउट यू. सो ही सेड कि अपनी सीट पे जल्दी जाके बैठो, वी वर गोइंग टू स्टार्ट विदाउट यू. I jumped over the bench and sat down at my desk. So he just sat on the desk. Not till then I had to go a little over my fright, and I see that our teacher had on his beautiful green coat. He said that I was trying to get over my fear because मेरे को पहले तो डर था कि he would be scare me, he would just scold me. But अब उन्होंने जब कुछ कहा नहीं तो I was like calm, I was able to overcome my fear, and after just getting settled I saw that my teacher was wearing a beautiful green coat. So अपने best कपड़ों में था. He was wearing a green coat, he was wearing a frilled shirt, he was wearing little black silk cap, all embroidered, that he never wore except on inspection and prize days. So this was a dress that he wore only on prize days and inspection days, and not on usual days. And today was a usual day according to France. So from this paragraph we also get to know that the boy, the name of the protagonist, the boy is France, right? So then he says, besides the whole school seemed so strange. So today everything was very strange and solemn. Solemn is like in a serious grave situation. But the thing that surprised me the most was to see on the black back benches that were always empty. Because सब कुछ अलग था. Everything was strange. Everything was grave. सब बहुत serious था. But एक चीज मुझे जो सबसे ज़्यादा strange लगी कि मैंने पीछे देखा तो back benches जो हमेशा खाली होते थे were filled today. The village people sitting quietly like ourselves. वहाँ पे आज village के लोग बैठे थे हमारी तरह. Old Hauser with his three cornered hat, so it is about his description. Then second number is the former mayor, वहाँ पे mayor भी बैठा था. The former postmaster भी था, and several other besides, और भी कई जने बैठे थे वहाँ पे पीछे वाली बुक्स में. Everyone looked sad, सब बहुत तो sad लग रहे थे. And Hauser had brought an old primer thumbed at edges. Old primer is a textbook. So एक पुरानी सी textbook लाया था जहाँ पे thumbed at the edges, तो थोड़ी सी edges से खराब हो चुकी होती है क्योंकि वो काफ़ी पुरानी थी, right? So he thumbed at the edges, held it open on his knees. अपनी knees पे उसको खोल के रखा हुआ था उसने, and his grey spectacle lying across the pages. So his spectacles was lying across the pages, something like this, right? So his spectacles was lying across the pages, right? Now next what happens is, while I was wondering about it all, जब मेरे दिमाग में सब कुछ चल रहा था कि ऐसा क्यों है आज, why is everyone sitting here, why is everything so quiet and grave, Monsieur Hamel mounted his chair in the same grave and gentle tone which he had used to me, said. तो वो अपनी सीट से उठे and उसी grave से serious और gentle प्यारी टोन में मुझसे बोला, my children, this is the last lesson I shall give you. This is the last lesson. This is the last class of me with you. I will not be teaching you anymore. The order has come from Berlin. Berlin is the capital of Germany. So he says Germany से order आया है to teach only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. It is a province. I told you that it was a place. So he says कि Germany से एक order आया है कि Alsace और Lorraine के schools में सिर्फ German ही पढ़ाई जाएगी. The new master comes tomorrow. तुम्हारा कल जो नया master है that will come tomorrow. This is your last French lesson because French पढ़ाता था, right? So he was a French teacher. So he said कि हमारा order आया कि French नहीं पढ़ाई जाएगी. So this is the last French lesson you all be receiving. The new master comes tomorrow. We already did that. I want you to be very attentive. So he says, because it's the last lesson, I want you all to be very attentive to listen to each and everything carefully. What a thunderclap these words were to me. So these words were very shocking to me. It startled me. It shocked me. Oh, the wretches! That was what? That was what they had put up. All the town hall. So he said, oh my God, he realizes that this was what in the town hall, on the bulletin board was put up, कि ये था उसके ऊपर, this was the bad news. My last French lesson, He was shocked it was my last French lesson. Why I hardly knew to how to write. कहता why this is my last French lesson. मुझे तो अभी लिखना भी नहीं आता. I should never learn anymore. मुझे तो इसके बारे में कुछ आता ही नहीं. इसको मैं आगे तो वैसे भी सीख नहीं पाऊंगा. I must stop there then. मुझे वहाँ पे रोक जाना चाहिए. Oh, how sorry I was for not learning my lessons. So he is regretful now. So he says that आई एम वेरी सॉरी कि मैंने अपने लेसन्स को टाइम से नहीं पढ़ा. मैंने अपने पढ़ाई को जो उनसे मेरे को काम मिलता था, जहाँ से मेरे को स्टडीज़ का काम था, वो मैंने टाइम से नहीं किया. फॉर सीकिंग बर्ड्स एग्स और गोइंग स्लाइडिंग ऑन माई सार, my books that seemed such a nuisance a while ago, so heavy to carry my grammar and my history of the saints. So he says, instead of learning my lessons, I used to see the bird's egg. I used to go on the slides on the Sar near the river, and the books that seemed to me like a nuisance, my grammar, my history. So these are all. So he says, see, what is a transformation? So before उसे कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं था पढ़ाई में. ही यूज टू पुट इट ऑफ, बट व्हेन ही कम्स टू नो that this is going to be his last lesson, he won't be getting any chance to learn his own language further. He just gets so depressed, and he says that my history, my grammar books, my love, each and everything were old friends. Now he says these books were his old friends, now that I couldn't give up, that I didn't wanted to give up. And Monsieur Hamel too. So first he found Monsieur Hamel so strict teacher, so bad, and now he says that Monsieur Hamel, my teacher, he is going to be away from me too. The idea that he was going away, that I should never see him again, made me forget all about his ruler and how cranky he was. He says that this realization that he will not be with us anymore, we will not be able to see him anymore, just made me forget how he is cranky, how sometimes he uses ruler on us, how cranky, how angry he used to get on us. So I forgot all these things. Poor man, it was in the honor of the last lesson that he had put on his fine Sunday clothes. He says that, oh, now I realize that because it was his last lesson, in honor of that he was wearing his just best Sunday clothes, that green coat, frilled shirt, silk cap, right? Now I understood why the old men of the village were sitting there in the back of the room. Now he understands that why the back benches of the class were filled today, why the old men of the village were sitting there. Who was sitting there? The former postman, our old hawser, and also the former mayor, right? Now he says that it was because they were sorry. So why they say sitting there? They were sorry, they were regretful to that they had not gone to school more. So he said they have also been regretful कि उन्होंने भी अपने schools को miss किया होगा किसी ना किसी time पे. It was their way of thanking a master. They were thanking the master for teaching them, for his 40 years of faithful service and showing respect for the country that was theirs no more. So he says that they were thanking the master for being so good teacher for 40 years. They were thanking the master for showing respect and being faithful to the service and also the country which is not theirs anymore. It is such a painful thing, such a disturbing fact that the country they lived in was not anymore theirs. It was ruled by someone else, and their own language was being taken away from them. While I was thinking of all this, जब तक मेरे दिमाग में ये सारी चीज़ें चल रही थी, I heard my name called. मेरे को सुनाई दिया कि किसी ने मेरे को आवाज़ लगाई है. It was my turn to recite. It was my turn to recite. What to recite? The participles, the verbs जिसका टेस्ट होना था आज. What would I not have given to be able to say that dreadful rule for the participle all through, loud and clear without one mistake. So कहता मैं क्या करता कि ऐसा मैं क्या करता कि मैं वो गंदा सा वो डरावना सा जो रूल है पार्टिसिपल्स का वो मैं पूरा loudly without any single mistake बोल पाता. But I got mixed up on the first words and stood there holding on to my desk. my heart beating and not daring to look up. So he said, I tried my best, but I stumbled. I fumbled on the very first word and could not say it correct. And I stood there. मैं वहाँ पे खड़ा रहा. Like we all do. जब हमसे कोई गलती हो जाती है, the teacher is scolding us, we stand on our desks. We keep looking down, and it's there. Our heart starts beating fast, and we are not able to look up into the eyes of the teacher. I heard Monsieur Hemmel say to me. So what did Monsieur Hemmel say? He said, I won't scold you little Franz. मैं तो कुछ नहीं डांटूंगा. You must feel bad enough. तुझे अपने आप ही बहुत ऑलरेडी बुरा लग रहा है. See how it is. कहता देखो ये कैसी बात है ना. Every day we have said ourselves, bah, I have plenty of time. I will learn it tomorrow. कहता हम रोज अपने आप से कहते हैं मेरे पास तो बहुत टाइम है, मैं कल पढ़ लूँगा. And now you have see where you have come out. और तुम्हें आज पता लग रहा है ना कि where you have this resulted in कि तुम्हारे पास अब और टाइम नहीं है. You don't have much of time now. That's the great trouble with Elsa. And we have come out. That is the great trouble with Elsa. She puts off learning till tomorrow. So he says that it is the greatest problem with the people of Elsa that they put off things tomorrow, especially learning till tomorrow. Right? Now those fellow out there will have the right to say to you, how is it you pretend to be Frenchmen, and yet you can neither speak or write your own language. So he says, now those people will get the chance to tell you that how are you telling us that we are French? How you are pretending to be French because you neither know how to read or even write your language. तुम कैसे कह सकते हो कि तुम फ्रेंच हो बिकॉज अगर तुम्हें अपनी लैंग्वेज ना ही लिखनी आती है ना ही बोलनी आती है. बट यू आर नॉट द वर्स्ट. पर तुम इतने भी बुरे नहीं हो. Poor little Franz, we have all a great deal to reapproach ourselves with. He said, and you are not the only one doing this. You are not the only one being suffering. You are not the only one who is at fault. हम सभी इस चीज के लिए जिम्मेदार हैं. Your parents were not anxious enough to have you learn. They preferred you to work on a farm or other miles so as to have a little more money. जैसे तुम्हारे पेरेंट्स इतने worried नहीं थे कि तुम्हें वो पढ़ाएं. They preferred you to just go to the fields, work there so that you can get a little more money than being in the school. And I have been to be blamed also. Said कि मेरी भी गलती है, मेरे को भी blame करना चाहिए. Have I not often sent you to water my flowers instead of learning your lessons? तो कहता क्या मैंने तुम्हें कभी अपने plants को पानी डालने नहीं भेजा? Instead of saying कि तुम अपना पढ़ो बैठ के. I sent you for flowering my plants, and when I wanted to go fishing, I did not just give you a holiday. और जब मैं fishing को जाना चाहता था मैंने तुम्हें छुट्टी कर दी. So it is also my fault that I didn't pay attention to your learning. Then from one thing to another, Monsieur Hammer went on the talk of the French language. कि एक से बढ़ के एक, फिर दूसरी बात, फिर तीसरी बात, कि वो कहाँ पे आ गया? Talking about the French language, कि वो कितनी अच्छी language है, saying that it was the most beautiful language in the world. So he says it was the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest, the most logical. So he gives the reasons that why French was most beautiful, because it was clear, it was most logical, and that we must guard it amongst us, and we should never forget. So he said we should guard us among the French language because we should protect it, and we should never forget the language. Because when a people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language, it is as if they have the key to their prison. As I said earlier, जैसे मैंने example दिया of the freedom struggle, we can also say that he says that कि जब तक लोगों के पास अपनी language रहेगी, they even slaves अगर उनको बना दिया जाए, they will have the key to their prison because they could discuss among themselves few things, right? Then he opened a grammar and read us our lessons. So he said कि उन्होंने कहा कि ग्रामर की बुक्स खोलो एंड हमें अपनी लेसन्स पढ़ाए. आई वॉज अमेज्ड टू सी हाउ वेल आई अंडरस्टूड इट ऑल. मतलब आज मुझे सब कुछ समझ आ रहा था. आई वॉज अमेज्ड, आई वॉज खुद शॉक हो गया कि मुझे कैसे सब कुछ समझ आ रहा है. मेरे को तो कभी समझ आता ही नहीं है दिस ईजिली, राइट. ऑल ही सेड सीम्ड सो ईजी. जो उसने कहा मुझे सब कुछ बहुत ईजी लग रहा था आज. so easy I think too that I had never listened so carefully. So मेरे को इस शायद इसलिए easy लग रहा था क्योंकि आज से पहले कभी मैंने उसको उसके तरफ ध्यान ही नहीं दिया, मैंने कभी उसको केयरफुली सुना ही नहीं कि मेरा टीचर कह क्या रहा है, and that he had never explained everything with so much patience. और आज मॉन्जर हैमल भी बहुत ज़्यादा पेशेंस के साथ सब कुछ समझा रहे थे, बहुत प्यार से समझा रहे थे. It seemed almost as if the poor man wanted to give us all he knew before he was going away. This is ऐसा लग रहा था कि मॉन्जर हैमल wanted to give us everything he knew, जो जो उसको पता था वो सब कुछ हमें बता देना चाहता था उसके जाने से पहले. And to put it all into the heads of at once show. तो एक ही बार में वो सबके दिमाग पे एक चीज़ को बिठा देना चाहता था, समझा देना चाहता था. After the grammar we had the lesson in writing. So grammar के बाद उन्होंने हमें राइटिंग करवाई. That day Monsieur Hamel had a new copies for us. उन्होंने सबको new copies दी, written in a beautiful round hand, France Alce France Alce. तो उसने सबकी कॉपीज के ऊपर फ्रांस एल से लिखा हुआ था. They looked like little flags floating everywhere in the school room. ऐसा लगा था पूरे स्कूल रूम में छोटे छोटे फ्लैग्स फ्लोट हो रहे हैं. Hung from the rod of the top of a desk. हमारे डेस्क से ऊपर से जैसे लगे हों, right? You ought to have seen how everyone set to work and how quiet it was. तुम्हें देखना चाहिए था कि कैसे सारे अपने काम में लगे हुए थे. How it was very quiet. Everyone was so focused that day, right? The only sound that was the scratching of the pens over the paper. एक जो अकेले साउंड तुम सुन सकते थे that was scratching of the pens on paper. जब कोई लिखता है तो पेपर के ऊपर आवाज आती है, right? सिर्फ पेन्स की आवाज आ रही थी. And then you can see over here is once some beetles flew in, but nobody paid any attention to them, not even the littlest ones. सबसे छोटे बच्चे भी पिजन्स के ऊपर आज उन्होंने बीटल्स अंदर आए ढूंढ के, पर किसी ने उस पर अटेंशन नहीं दी. इवन द स्मॉलेस्ट चिल्ड्रन, द लिटलेस्ट, हमारे जो सबसे छोटे बच्चे भी थे उन्होंने भी उस पर ध्यान नहीं दिया. Who worked right on tracing their fish hooks as if there was a French too. और वो अपने फिश हुक्स से, छोटे बच्चे तो ट्रेसिंग कर रहे थे, वो अपनी ट्रेसिंग में ही मस्त थे, लाइक देयर वाज फ्रेंच टू. ऑन द रूफ ऑफ द पिजन्स कोड वेरी लो एंड आई थॉट टू माई सेल्फ. हमारी जो छत पे पिजन बहुत धीरे धीरे आवाज़ निकाल रहे हैं और मैं अपने आप में सोच रहा हूँ, विल दे मेक देम सिंग इन जर्मन इवन द पिजन्स. क्या वो पिजन्स को भी जर्मन में कहेंगे, बिकॉज दे सेड दैट देयर विल बी नो फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज. तो पिजन्स को क्या पता कि कौन सी लैंग्वेज है. मे बी वो पिजन्स को भी कहें कि तुम्हें फ्रेंच में नहीं बोलना, अब से तुम भी जर्मन में बोलोगे. Whenever I looked up from my writing, I saw Monsieur Hamel sitting motionless in his chair and gazing first at one thing, then at another, as he wanted to fix in his mind just how everything looked in that little schoolroom. So he said, every time I was writing, मैं जैसे ही ऊपर देखता था, I would see कि मॉन्जर हैमल अपनी सीट में बिल्कुल मोशनलेस स्टिल बैठे हैं, कभी एक चीज़ को देख रहे हैं, कभी दूसरी चीज़ को देख रहे हैं, बिल्कुल मोशनलेस स्टैचू होकर देख रहे हैं. लाइक ही वाज ट्राइंग टू फिक्स एवरीथिंग कि यहाँ पे ये चीज़ पड़ी है, यहाँ पे ये चीज़ पड़ी है, इस स्कूल के रूम में जहाँ पे मैंने अपने इतने 40 years ऑफ टीचिंग बिताए हैं, राइट. देन फॉर 40 years he had been there in the same place, with his garden outside the window and his class in front of him, just like that. So he said 40 सालों से वो वहाँ पे था, उसकी उसी रूम में था, वहाँ पे उसके सामने उसके बच्चे थे जो उसको स्टूडेंट्स थे, उसके रूम के बाहर उसका गार्डन था जो उसको बहुत पसंद था. Only the desks and the benches had been worn smooth. इतना यूज हो के थोड़े से स्मूथ हो गए थे अब वो. द वॉलनट ट्रीज इन द गार्डन वर टॉलर, ट्रीज बड़े हो चुके थे. एंड द हॉप वाइन दैट he had planted himself twined about the windows to the roof. तो क्लाइंबर्स हैं बिकॉज इसलिए तो वो उसकी सपोर्ट से ऊपर चढ़ गया था. सो ये कि क्या क्या चेंजेस आए थे, दैट वाज ओनली कि जो डेस्क है वो यूज हो के बहुत ज़्यादा स्मूथ हो चुके थे, ट्रीज ग्रो हो चुके थे, उसकी जो क्लाइंबर उसने लगाया था वो ऊपर चढ़ चुका था. ठीक है. नाउ हाउ इट मस्ट हैव ब्रोकन हिज हार्ट टू लीव इट ऑल. तो इतना उसने जो अपने देखा, इतना जो उसने उसको ग्रो किया, कितना उसे बुरा लग रहा होगा कि उसको अब ये सब कुछ छोड़ना पड़ेगा. Poor man to hear his sister moving about in the room above packing the trunks, for they must have leave their country next day. So he says कि उसके लिए वो कितना बुरा हार्ट ब्रेकिंग होगा कि उसकी बहन ऊपर उसका सामान हिला रही है and she is just packing and telling him कि they have to leave the country tomorrow, they will not be allowed to live in this country anymore. But he had the courage to hear every lesson to the very last. पर उसने हमें हर एक चीज पूरी एंड तक पढ़ाई. After writing, he had the lesson in the history. उसने हमें हिस्ट्री पढ़ाई. And the babies chanted there. छोटे बच्चों ने they chanted there ba be pi po bu. So they were alphabets. So उन्होंने अपने alphabets की प्रैक्टिस की. Down there at the back of the primer, in the both hands, an old room, Hauser had to put on his spectacles. So Hauser ने जैसे अपने spectacles यहाँ पे रखी हुई थी, तो उसने अपनी spectacles डाली. And then holding this primer in his both hands, अपनी बुक को हाथ में पकड़ के spell the letters with them, उनके साथ साथ ही बोलना शुरू किया. You could see that he too was crying. His voice trembled with emotions, and it was so funny to hear him that we all wanted to laugh and cry. So he said, उसकी भी बोलते बोलते आवाज़ लड़खड़ा रही थी. It was tremble, वो choke करने वाला था, emotions के साथ था, और हमें इनकी बहुत ज़्यादा हंसी आ रही थी उसकी आवाज़ सुन के. We wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. How well I remember it, that last lesson. So he said कि मेरे को वो अपना last lesson कितने अच्छे से एक छोटी छोटी डिटेल्स के साथ याद है, बहुत करेक्टली. All at once the church clock struck 12. कहता है एकदम से चर्च की क्लॉक 12 पे आई. Then the angelus. At the same moment the trumpets of the Prussians returning from the dead. So 12 पे ना basically they used to pray. जैसे प्रे हुई तो वहाँ पे ट्रम्पेट्स की आवाज़ आनी शुरू हुई. जो रशियंस थे, प्रूसियंस थे, दे वर रिटर्निंग फ्रॉम द ड्रिल, अपनी ड्रिल से वापस, अपनी प्रैक्टिस से वापस आ रहे थे. साउंडेड अंडर आवर विंडोज, तो हमें उनकी विंडोज से आवाज़ आई. मॉन्जे हैमल स्टूड अप वेरी प्लेस इन हिज चेयर. आई नेवर सॉ हिम लुक सो टॉल. तो वो अपनी चेयर में खड़े हुए बहुत स्टिल. मुझे कभी वो इतने लंबे लगे नहीं क्योंकि ही वॉज सो स्टिल, ही वॉज पेल, तो वो लंबे ज़्यादा लग रहे थे. My friends, he said, but something choked him. He couldn't go on. वो कुछ बोलने लगे थे. My friends, but he couldn't say. He choked on something. Then he turned to the blackboard. Blackboard की तरफ घूमे. Took a piece of chalk and bearing on his with all his might, he wrote as large as he could. ब्लैकबोर्ड की तरफ टर्न हुए, एक चौक उठाया, जितनी हिम्मत हो सकती थी उतनी हिम्मत से बहुत बड़ा बड़ा उसने लिखा. That Viva la France. Viva la France means long live France. Then he stopped and leaned his head against the wall. So he stopped, leaned his head against the wall like this, and without a word, उसने कुछ बोला नहीं. He made a gesture to us with his hand. He gestured us that to go. The school is dismissed. You may go. तो उसने gesture किया कि तुम अब जा सकते हो. The school is dismissed. The class is finished, and you will never be able to see me again. Right? So with this we complete the short story, the last lesson. I hope you understood it, and I hope you liked my efforts. If you did, please hit the like button, share this video with friends, subscribe to the channel, because that would make up for all of this effort. And I'll see you guys in the very next one. Till then, bye bye. Thanks for watching, and you can ask all your queries in the comment section. Bye guys.